Maybe don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build. 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 This time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to episode 42 of the Power Company Podcast, brought to you by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. Before I even get started here, I just want to say a big thanks. We just hit 150,000 downloads, and this thing's it'll be 18 months old next week, so we're still wee babes, and 63,000 of those downloads have come in the past 90 days. So you guys are killing it. Thank you. We appreciate that hugely. Nate and I are here in Lander right now working on the patron-only episodes and new rewards for the patrons that are going to be coming out in June. So if you have not become a patron yet, you can still do that. And you'll be able to do that forever, frankly. You can do it at patreon.com/powercompanypodcast. We're going to have a bunch of new, exciting things for the patrons. We've had a lot of fun figuring out exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So coming soon. We're also working on ebook updates over here. Those things are going to be all updated this summer. And we're really excited about one we've been putting a lot of energy into, which is a new one that will be concerning the development of body tension and how you apply it to climbing. And we really think this is a game changer. So we're excited to get that out to you guys. And like I said, those will be out this summer. And this summer, August 17th through 19th, we'll be at the Midwest Training for Climbing Conference, where we'll be speaking and coaching workshops on this new concepts of body tension that we've been working on. So, if you guys are able, we would love to see you out there. Again, that's August 17th through the 19th at Adventure Rock, Milwaukee. And you can find more info at midwesttcc.com. I'll be speaking with Steve Bechtel, Arno Ilgner, and Justin Shong are the other main speakers and main presenters there. So we'd all love to see you guys out there. Today's episode is with Neely Quinn, who you all most likely know from TrainingBeta.com. If you aren't listening to Training Beta, you should go subscribe now. It was sort of the inspiration for this podcast, actually, and I appreciate all the things that Neely has done to further the education of climbing training. So definitely go listen to her podcast over at Training Beta. And today we just talk about nutrition. Neely is a nutritionist, and I am the polar opposite of a nutritionist, whatever that is. And Neely had a really great common sense way of approaching it. And when she spoke at the seminar Nate and I just attended with Steve Bechtel's climbing coaching seminar here in Lander, I really connected with her approach, and I wanted to talk to her so that you guys could hear it. She spends most of her time talking to other people, and I don't think that she gets enough shine with her nutrition advice. So without further ado.
And I mean, it's just a matter of how much you want to optimize your health for whatever reasons. Because for some people, it's just not worth it.
Cool. Did not do it today.
No,
I don't think I could have done it today either. That's why I didn't get on it.
Yeah. Oh, wait, am I not talking enough into it?
No, you're good. You're
Okay.
totally good. So should be set to go. The reason I wanted to talk to you about nutrition, you're a nutritionist, so that's helpful. But I suck at nutrition. Like I know almost nothing about it. And when I read about it, I just totally space out.
Yeah.
I just can't do it, But when you were talking in the seminar this week, you definitely put it into a really easy to understand, common sense, like just do this and this and this and you're fine, you know? And I like that and I appreciate that. And I think that there are certainly people out there like me who are listening who don't care about macros and don't want to count calories and don't want to be super involved in it. Or people who might have a bad relationship with food who maybe shouldn't even be doing those things. I don't know. But, you know, talk to me a little bit about where did that common sense approach come from? Like, did you delve into all the science of it and then distill it down to this common sense approach?
Well, I mean, that's kind of my personality, really, is just I'm super straight to the point, as you've probably noticed over the years. And I like things to be really understandable for myself. And I just figure that that's how everybody else wants it to be too. So I just try to be as direct and easy to understand as possible and make it, I mean, you can read all these nutrition books and it's the same with training.
I can't read any of those nutrition books.
You could. And it's the same with training. Like you can read all this stuff and it's not going to make any sense. So I just want to give people guidelines that they could actually use like today.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's cool. And it, you know, part of it I liked because it was validating what I already do. Like, okay, I do that and I do that and I do that. I could do a little more of that, you know? So that was cool to hear. And that's just what I've come across through years of this food doesn't make me feel good. This food doesn't make me feel good. Let me try more of this, you know? What is your, like, your basic, if you had to tell somebody, here's the way you should eat as a climber, what's your like basic?
You want me to repeat what I repeated 50 times in the seminar this week?
Yeah, because none of these people heard it.
It's pretty easy. And I think this is, people want like a magic equation or like, this is what you eat for breakfast and this is what you eat for lunch and this is what you eat for dinner. But for me, it's the same shit all the time.
Right.
And that, I think, generally works for a lot of people. They get into a rhythm. They find foods that agree with them. Like you said, there are some foods that just don't agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think most of us have, you know, at least a couple that we know, when I eat this, I'm not going to feel good. I'm not going to feel energetic. And if you pay attention to that, then you can just pare it down. And so my main thing that I said in the seminar was just to, every time you sit down for a meal, have it have a good amount of protein, a good amount of fat, and a good amount of carbohydrates. And then the next time you eat, do the exact same thing and make your plate full enough so that you're full for like at least a few hours, and then do it again and do it again. And like breakfast doesn't have to be just bread and cheese. It can be, or bread and sugar, or, you know, cereal or whatever. It can be, it could be meat and vegetables, or it could be eggs and vegetables, or whatever you want it to be that makes you feel good.
So you're not a fan of the like low carb weight loss popular
for
things?
Sure, for certain people. But because I work mostly with climbers, like, and unless they're trying to lose weight, then we go that route. But most climbers need plenty of carbs. And by plenty, I mean less than the average American eats, honestly, because the average American is eating like 300 to 400 grams of carbs a day. And we don't need that. Like, nobody needs that. That's why everybody's so overweight. But when my climbers end up eating between like 150 and 200 grams of carbs a day, that's like a pretty good sweet spot for people.
And what does 150 or 200 grams of carbs look like? Like, if I had it in my hand, what would that look like?
So that would look like, okay, so if you had a cup of rice, that's going to be about 40 grams of carbs. So if you did that 3 times a day, that's about 120 grams of carbs.
Okay.
Or a banana is 25 grams of carbs, or any piece of meat, you know, like a medium piece of fruit is going to be about 25 grams of carbs. So if you had like 3 servings of grains a day, like in the form of, you know, rice or quinoa or whatever, and you had like a cup of it, and then in your snacks, you're going to have like a piece of fruit with some sort of other food too, then you're going to get to that 150 to 200 grams.
So those 2 giant plates of pasta I ate last night were probably not the best idea.
Well, what did you have with them? I mean, it totally depends.
It was not the best idea. I'll go ahead and tell you that.
Yeah. Okay.
It was family dinner, and it was beef stroganoff and super creamy and tons of calories. And
Well, okay. So
but it
that's
was so good because we destroyed ourselves yesterday.
Yeah. So it's interesting the things that we feel guilty about as Americans, right?
Yeah.
Because I hear people, they're like, it was creamy and delicious and it had meat in it. And so it must be really bad for me. Well, that's not necessarily the case. How do you feel today?
I felt good today.
How did you feel last night?
Very full, but good.
But good.
I was really tired before.
Yeah. So it had
Wrecked.
beef. It had the cream in it. It had the pasta. So those are your protein, your fat, and your carb right there.
Okay.
And just because it was like pasta and pasta's bad for you because it's high carb, like, yeah, maybe if you had a gluten sensitivity, that wouldn't have been the greatest thing for you and you could have
Right.
had it with rice. But like those are real foods that you ate and it probably had a little vegetables in it, or did it
Yep,
not?
it did. It
Yeah,
did.
so then you get your nutrients from all of those things.
No, we don't eat vegetables.
Yeah. Ew.
None of those.
And so that's fine. Now, if you had said to me like, today I felt really sluggish, I was super constipated, my stomach hurt, then I
Right.
would say, well, maybe rethink all that cream or maybe rethink something else in that.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely ate too much of it because, and this is my problem as an eater that comes from my childhood of my parents being like, you have to clean your plate. You have to clean your plate. No matter how much is put in front of me, I will eat all of it.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
used to do that
and
too.
if there's more left, I'll go get more and I'll eat all of it. That seems like it's just been built in. And I've worked on getting out of that and I've gotten better and better at it. Last night I was not good at it.
Yeah.
But, I do think that's important. How do you feel about portions?
Yeah, that's something I struggled with too, actually. And I would not only eat like everything that was on my plate, but I would eat everything that was on all of my family's plate and all of my friends' plates. And I mean, I got up to like 135 pounds for a while, and I'm 5 feet tall.
Yeah, you're small.
Yeah,
so.
so I had to, one of the biggest things that I did to lose.
Now you're 135 pounds of bicep. You're yoked.
Yeah, Chris keeps commenting on that I look yoked, but it's all the protein I eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what happened and what I suggest for people is just that they stop when they're full. Like I'll say, go to like a 7 or 8 on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is you're really, really, really hungry, and 10 is after Thanksgiving dinner.
Gotcha.
And so if you go to the 7 or 8 and where you're like, yeah, I think I'm done. I've had enough. And then practice pushing it away.
Yep.
Like it takes a lot of practice to do it.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It takes a ton.
But yeah, you just have to listen to your body. And generally, unless people are really messed up and they've dealt with eating disorders and overeating for years,
Yep.
their cues are pretty right on.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Do you mind telling us, you just said you had a lot of protein, that's why you're so jacked now. But you told us during the seminar what you were eating for breakfast, and
Yeah, which I was forever made fun of for.
that's just the nature
that was fun.
of being here. But I was really impressed by it. I think it's really interesting. I think a lot of other people find it interesting what you were eating for breakfast. So do
Yeah.
you mind telling us what your week looked like?
Sure. So what I have for breakfast today, because it was similar. Before I came here, I made like 8 lamb burgers on my smoker, which is delicious.
And you said when you make a burger, you make 8 burgers.
Yeah, I always make more than one
Yeah.
because I don't really like cooking that much, and I think it's a waste of my time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nutritionist, and I just said that.
Yeah.
But I would rather just make everything in bulk and always just have like a bunch of options in my refrigerator that can quickly just reheat or not. But anyway, I had a lamb burger, a piece of bacon. I also brought like 5 pieces of bacon with me so I could have one each morning.
Yeah, I saw you snacking on bacon throughout the classes, and I'm like, damn, why didn't I bring bacon?
It's so good. And then I had a little bit of jicama, a little bit of broccoli, and which I had steamed the night before. And yeah, that was it. Oh no, and some sweet potato. So I always have some carb with each of my meals, whether it's sweet potato or plantains or tapioca, because I don't eat grains and I don't eat gluten. So those are just my options.
Right. And you had pork chops several
so I had
days for breakfast this week, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I have pork chops. Sometimes I'll have turkey cutlets or something. But so this is actually a new thing for me. And it'll be interesting maybe for some people because my breakfast before used to be eggs in a tapioca crepe that I would make with some bacon and blah, blah, blah. And for like 3 days a week, I had these heinous headaches and I was really tired all the time. And I was like, all right, something is not right. And I've been eating eggs my whole life. Like I've eaten eggs every morning for the past 20 years. So I was like, could it be
And all your
eggs?
family's eggs too.
Yeah, and all my family's eggs too, and all Seth's eggs. And so the only thing I could think of was the eggs. And that was absolutely devastating for me.
Yeah.
Because I love eggs.
Eggs are delicious.
And they make everything else delicious.
Yeah.
So I ended up I took them out for 3 weeks of my diet completely, and my headaches got way better. And I felt much more energetic. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to test them because I really want to eat them. And then I had headaches for 2 days after that. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was really night and day.
And you're an advocate of these, and I don't even know what they're called. I would know the word if I wasn't sitting here with a microphone in my hand.
Yeah.
When you take something out of your diet.
Yeah, elimination diets.
Elimination diets, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think I've gone a little bit too far with it. I think my body, I'm just learning this now. Like, I think my body is a little bit less hardy than it could be because I have taken so many things out, and I'm so disciplined with my diet that when I take something out, it never comes back in.
Right.
Like,
right.
I'm not a cheater or whatever.
That's why you eat pork chops, because that's the only thing left.
Yeah, it's one of the only things left. Yeah. Like, I don't eat chicken or beef. Beef gives me ocular migraines, which are terrifying and really uncomfortable. So,
right.
But, I'm also a really sensitive person for various reasons. But, when I work with people, I definitely am not saying you need to take this out. You need to go strict paleo.
Right.
Like, I definitely don't do that. And I don't want people to live the way that I live in terms of how limited their food options are. And I'm working on that. But I do definitely advocate for people to figure out the things that really do bother them, like if they're having headaches all the time or their stomach hurts all the time or whatever it is, that sometimes can be just one food. Or like I have other people who have had chronic migraines and they take out gluten and they're like 100% better.
Right.
Which is amazing,
So an elimination diet works by, you eat what you're normally eating, you have headaches or you feel really bloated or whatever the issue is, and then you take one thing out at a time, right?
Yeah.
If you take something out and nothing changes, then you put it back in?
Well, it depends on the situation, but you can do it several different ways. Like if you're super sick, if somebody came to me and they were very sick and they had a bunch of symptoms, I might say to them, you should go paleo, like strict paleo. No grains, no dairy, no vegetable oils, no legumes. And I do that for at least a few weeks. See how you do with that. And then we start adding one thing back in at a time.
Okay.
So like one thing every 3 to 5 days. And it can be extremely tedious and laborious and confusing. Yep. It's not like an exact science. So that's not something that thankfully a lot of people are really healthy. And I don't do that with many climbers. With my other like paleo clients, that was definitely a thing.
Gotcha. That makes more sense, I guess, than taking one thing out at a time and seeing what's changing. For me, it would be impossible because I would just be like, fuck everything. Ice cream makes me feel good. I'm only going to eat ice cream. That's what I would do.
Yeah, ice cream is really delicious.
So with the amount of protein that you're eating, I think a lot of people are going to be like, that's a lot of protein. That's too much protein.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your thoughts on this too much protein idea?
Well, I think that we've been told over and over and over that, first of all, meat is bad for us that too much protein is going to make our kidneys, we're going to have kidney failure. And a lot of those studies are really just plain bullshit. And thankfully they're debunking some of those studies, especially about like cholesterol and saturated fat and all of that. They're still coming out with really shoddy research about like red meat causing diabetes. And I won't even get started with that kind of stuff.
You're getting
'cause it
all
makes me
angry over here.
I get really angry.
Raging.
It's one of the things that makes me super angry because when you think about it evolutionarily, it's like what made us what we are is
Right.
cooked meat.
Right.
Like it made our brains what
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
And we've been eating it as, throughout our evolution for millions of years.
Yeah.
So why in God's name would it be bad for us?
Right.
And not to say that like factory farmed meat isn't worse for us, less good for us than pastured meat. But anyway, I think that the studies on the kidney failure kind of stuff were done on people who actually had kidney problems to begin with. So then they give them a 25%, 30% diet of protein. And yes, their kidneys are going to have problems with it. But for the
Gotcha.
general population, that's just not the case. Like there have been plenty of studies done where you eat 25% to 30% and you're fine. But over that, I never suggest that people go over a 30%. Although there are tons of bodybuilders who do that every day.
Mm-hmm.
But you do start to see like things with their blood work.
Do you think that most climbers you see or talk to are getting enough protein?
No. I mean, I see their diets. Like I see all these people's diets and they're very my clients are very representative, I think, of the general population.
Yeah, and you ask everybody who's on your podcast what they eat. And, so you get a good idea.
But I want to clarify that I think that we're all on a spectrum. Like I was vegetarian for 12 years.
Right.
And I think it really messed my body up. And
But it won't mess everybody's body up.
No.
Right.
No. I don't think it will. I think that my particular body type requires a lot of protein, especially because I depleted it for so long.
Right.
Of that protein. But I know plenty of people who've been vegetarian and vegan for years, and they're some of the strongest climbers I know.
Sure.
And most of the people who I talk to on the really strong climbers who are on the podcast, they tell me, I don't eat that much meat. I eat blah, blah, blah. I eat a lot of vegetables. And they eat generally really healthily.
Yep.
And they're obviously like way stronger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't fault them for that. Sometimes I'll wonder, I wonder if he ate more protein, if he would be even stronger.
Could he be stronger?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's always a question, I think.
Yeah, for sure. But then like Jonathan, I told him to eat more protein. He got bulky and he didn't like it and he didn't feel good. Right. And so now he's like somewhere in between, which is totally fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are your, if a climber you think isn't getting enough protein, what's your go-to sources?
Well, the top sources are going to be animal products. Okay. So if they're a meat eater, I'll go to meat. And it's crazy because almost every time a client comes to me and they say, my energy isn't as good as I want it to be. I'm not climbing as strong as I want to. And then they add more meat into their diet. Almost every single time they get stronger and have more energy. And everything else feels better. Like their blood sugar gets better. Yep. So everything just feels better. They're like, my workouts are easier. I'm climbing harder, sometimes like way harder.
Right.
And so it usually doesn't fail. But if they're vegetarian, then it gets really tricky because it's either tofu, which doesn't have a ton of protein in it compared to meat, or it's like, well, maybe you could start eating some fish, and some of them do. Or it's whey or dairy, like yogurt can have a lot of protein in it. Right. So those would be my sources.
Okay. What do you feel about like red meat versus other meat? Is there danger to eating a lot of red meat? These are just things I've heard, and I really have no idea.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
there's a guy, Chris Kresser, who he does a ton of research, and he's really good at breaking down research that comes out. So every time there's one of those articles that it's like red meat will kill you. Right. He's really good at going into that study and saying this is what they did wrong, and like they're not accounting for these other things that are in these people's diets. They didn't do this right. They used there's all kinds of stuff that is wrong with these studies. And if you go to chriskresser.com and you just search red meat, there is an enormous amount of articles on there about that if anybody's interested.
It's Chris CHRISKR.
Yeah, KRESSER,
Okay.
chriskresser.com. And he's great. And so personally, I don't think that anybody really is going to just eat like a steak every meal.
Yeah.
And if they did, I think as long as they're eating... See, the problem can be when you're eating like a lot of red meat and you're eating just like sugar with it, or just, empty calorie grains, high inflammatory grains, because some of the things in meat are they can be a little bit inflammatory. So if you're eating all these other inflammatory foods, then that's where the problems start. And so our diet of like meat, dairy, which is inflammatory, sugar, and pretty much no vegetables or fruits in most people's diets.
Yep.
Like that's where the problems start, because they're inflamed, and inflammation is what is causing heart disease and diabetes and and obesity even. So it's a balance. Like you have to think about what we evolved eating, and it was meat. It was some nuts and seeds, a little bit of grain, lots of vegetables, lots of root vegetables, fruits when they were available, and good fats. And that's it,
I like that you said fruits when they were available, because, that's something you talked about a fair amount during the week, or maybe it's just something you said once and I'm like, oh God, I eat a ton of fruit.
Yeah.
For me, early on in life, there was almost no fresh fruits and vegetables. That just didn't happen. It was more like everything came out of a can or out of a package from the freezer, because microwaves were like the new cool thing. And that's how we made every meal. Mm-hmm. And so when I started trying on my own to like make these attempts at being healthier, it was like fruits and vegetables. And I'm like, oh yeah, fruits are way better. Like they taste way better.
Yeah, they do.
So I would eat fruit constantly, and I still do. I eat a ton more vegetables now than I ever did before, but I still eat quite a bit of fruit. And there's a lot of sugar in fruit, right?
Yeah.
And you just said when they were available, and I had never thought of that, but the way the season that fruit grows would have been the only time you could get fruit before Whole Foods.
Right. Okay, so here's the thing is, and we are generally, a lot of us, like northern hemisphere type genes, right?
Right.
But humans are super adaptable. Like there are people who live near the equator and they always have fruit.
Right, sure.
And they're fine. Like there are a lot of hunter-gatherer groups that I've studied, and they eat a ton of fruit and they're fine.
And they've adapted to able to process.
Yeah, humans are super adaptable. And that's why we can subsist on like this Neolithic diet that we have with all the grains and all the sugar, and we're still like living.
Right.
So I don't think that eating fruit all the time is necessarily a bad thing. We're really lucky that we get to. Mm-hmm. It's just making sure that, my main point throughout the whole week was that your blood sugar, you need to maintain good blood sugar. Mm-hmm. And if you're eating just fruit and it's just like dried mangoes and that's your snack 2 times a day, that's a lot of sugar. Yep. And you might have troubles with your blood sugar, which might cause troubles with your energy levels.
I'm glad you said dried mangoes. That's my fiance's favorite snack, and I'm not a big fan of it. So
you're not a fan of dried mango. You're like the only person.
Maybe we'll cut those out now.
Well, you know what you should have her do is, because I was eating a ton of them for a while. Seth and I were spending exorbitant amounts of money on dried mango because we were totally addicted. And then I was like, okay, well, I've gained a little weight. Let's see what's actually in this. And there is, I can't actually remember how much sugar I was eating, but it was like over 100 grams a day just in mango.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is a lot. Mm-hmm. And so then it's really calorie dense too. But anyway, the main point is like, if you're going to have dried mango, have a couple pieces, have a little almond butter, and have a little piece of some sort of protein, like a hard-boiled egg. That's a lovely snack.
Yeah.
That's like a little meal.
Oh, good. She'll love to hear that. Now she gets to have her Justin's almond butter packets.
Yeah, totally. That's totally fine.
Damn it. She was right. Okay. Yeah. I think that makes sense. If you're, we talked about the amount of carbs and what that looks like. And I think that's super helpful to have that visual. especially for me, because when you say grams, I just start blanking out. Like I don't even know what that means, you know? What would, if I were going to have a good breakfast, a good lunch, a good dinner, you just told what a good snack looks like. And that's really important for me to be able to see. What does a handful of this and this and this, what's a breakfast look like maybe?
Well, for like a normal person,
for a climber,
not who's me.
not Neely climber.
Yeah. Well, I think that, so here's the problem with eggs. I think a lot of people's go-to is eggs, as it was for me.
Yep.
And I will say also, since I have had to take eggs out, I feel way different in terms of energy too. Like now that I'm eating so much more protein and therefore so much more food in the morning, my energy is way better for way longer.
Okay.
Because I would be hungry after like an hour after that breakfast with eggs.
Right.
So each egg has about 7 grams of protein in it. Whereas so if you're having 2 eggs, did I just say 7 or 14?
You said 7 per egg. Yeah.
So if you're having 2 eggs, that's about 14 grams of protein. If you have a pork chop like me, and a piece of bacon or something, that's going to be more like 40 grams of protein.
Okay.
Depending on how big it is.
Yeah.
That's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge difference. And I think that the most important time to have a lot of protein is in the morning, because we've just fasted for 8 to however many hours. And our bodies are hungry. We may have trained or climbed the day before. And so our bodies are even more hungry, especially for protein, because it's so important for recovery and muscle synthesis and all of that. So I think that a good breakfast for anybody would be, if you're not going to have meat in the morning, then try to have, one of my clients has a couple eggs, or maybe it's 3 eggs, but he also has a serving of Greek yogurt, which has 20 grams of protein in it.
Right. Cool.
It's a lot of protein.
Yeah.
And so that right there, he's getting like 50 grams, because he also has some other stuff in there. And vegetables have a little protein in it. Right. Grains have a little protein. And so he's getting like 50 grams of protein per breakfast.
Cool.
Which is great. So I think it was like eggs with some veggies sauteed in a little coconut oil, and then he has his yogurt, and that's lovely.
Cool. There are times when I'm making breakfast, especially when we were in Waco this winter, and we would go get brisket from the Vista Market, and in the mornings I would make all these vegetables and then brisket and eggs, and eat that all as a big scramble.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of mornings where I'm like adding brisket, and I'm like, this brisket is fucking delicious.
Yeah.
But am I getting too much protein? I don't know, So I never knew that eating 3 eggs is not even close to enough protein for an active person.
And enough, yes, because there are plenty of really great athletes who do that, and they're totally fine. But my rule,
but I'm not going overboard.
Yeah, no, you weren't going overboard, and that was like, I mean, how did you feel when you were eating that?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you keep asking that. I think that's maybe something we don't ask ourselves enough. That we worry a lot about our diets, but I think that's a good thing to ask. How do I feel? Yeah,
I mean, that's what I'm constantly asking my clients, is because it doesn't matter. Like, I can tell them to eat 150 grams of protein a day, and they might feel awful. Like, they might feel really bloated. Some people just don't digest protein very well because they're lacking hydrochloric acid. And then they sometimes will supplement hydrochloric acid in order to be able to digest it. And some people just don't, I don't know, they don't like meat that much. Mm-hmm. And so they feel sort of gross eating it. So it just really depends on the person.
Yeah. So we should just end this and be like, do you feel good? If you do, great. If you don't, change some shit.
Well, and that's a problem too, because a lot of people don't know that they feel bad. And I come across that a lot too, because they're like, yeah, it's just normal to have,
is just my norm.
Like a huge dip in energy where I feel like falling asleep at 3 p.m. every single day. And you're like, actually, that's not normal, and you don't have to have that.
So what is normal? Like, what are normal energy levels? How should a climber who's actively climbing a few days a week and then working a normal job, how should you feel?
Well,
If you're eating right.
if you're eating right and sleeping right and drinking enough water and not super stressed out and like it all, these
God.
are all of
Is
the
there anyone like that?
I mean, no, no, not at all. And it's funny because I'm a nutritionist, but then when I talk to my clients, these are as much priorities for them as their diet, because you can't, I mean, you have to sleep in order to recover. It doesn't matter what I tell you to eat. You're still going to feel like
Right.
shit if you're sleeping 5 hours a night and drinking like 62 ounces of coffee every day.
Right.
So I can't remember what you asked me.
What does normal look like?
Oh, normal. I mean, I think it looks like if you were to sleep at least 8 hours a night and even more on hard training days, that'd be awesome. And then you wake up, you eat something, and then you feel like, I mean, everybody feels tired in the morning. That's
Right.
normal.
Right.
But like not being able to get out of your house or out of bed without the thought of coffee or sugar to perk you up. And then you should be able to go for 3 to 5 hours between meals optimally. But for climbers who are really active, like sometimes it works better for them to eat, breakfast and then snack and then lunch and then snack and then climb and then dinner or whatever. But you shouldn't have those. The reason that people get energy lows is because their blood sugar goes low or they
Gotcha.
do something like super physically active. And so if people just keep their blood sugar super even all day throughout the day and then go to sleep, wake up, eat again, they're generally going to feel energetic throughout the whole day without the use of caffeine.
Gotcha. So
And-
that's what we're looking for, is just pretty
Yeah.
even energy levels.
Yeah. And if you're not, then it's really time to look at how much sugar are you eating? Like sugar, not carbs, but actual sugar.
Right.
Whether it's from fruit or like in the form of white sugar. And that's where, I mean, every single one of my clients uses MyFitnessPal for at least a few days before I talk to them so that we can see this is how many grams of sugar you're eating. This is how many carbs. And sometimes people come to me and they're eating 500 grams of carbs a day. And they're like, I can't lose weight. My climbing's sucking. My energy sucks. I don't sleep well. I get up in the middle of the night to eat. And all those things. It's like, okay, let's scale down to 150, 200 grams and see how you feel. And that makes their blood sugar way better.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, as an athlete my whole life, I remember in high school, before a wrestling meet or something, I would think I have to carbo load. Like I have to eat 1 million carbs because that was the cool thing. That was the popular thing. It's what everybody talked about. What, is that an actual thing or?
Well, yeah. I mean, you definitely want to have your glycogen stores filled before an event like that. So for sure, like I've experimented a ton with
And do you think that
low carb diets.
climbing as well needs
Yeah.
you to have a little more carbs before you perform well?
Yeah, I think so. But I think the carb loading, I don't know how much you were eating.
Oh, I was a high school kid and stupid, so it was a lot. But
Well, then, I mean, again, how'd you feel? You probably felt like shit.
well, I mean,
Also, you were a
I
wrestler.
was a 16. I was a 16-year-old wrestler who always made weight, so I didn't worry about cutting weight. So I don't know how I felt. I was 16.
Yeah,
No one knows how they feel at 16.
that's true. That's true. I didn't. I think the carbo loading is only necessary if you are, if you're doing a ton of exercise,
Like aerobic type
especially
exercise or-
aerobic type
Yeah.
exercise. But I haven't encountered any athlete that I've worked with where we need to carbo load them unless they're on a low carb diet
Right.
and they are actually depleted. And I've definitely experienced that. And like you're just tired and your muscles just don't work. And then as soon as you have the whatever, like I'll have a crepe with jelly on it or
Right,
something,
right.
you're like, okay, I can go again.
Time to go.
Yeah.
So do you like bump up all the things before you're going to perform? Like the day before you're going out to try to send your project?
No.
What does that look like?
No, I mean not if you're continually feeding your muscles and body with plenty of carbs. And
So keep it even.
yeah, just keep it even. Because if you're trying to send, right, the night before, the last thing you want to do is have like 450 grams of carbs.
Right.
That's glutinous and like tons of sugar too. And the next day you're going to wake up and you're going to be like really bloated. You're going to have edema. Your eyes are probably going to be poofy. You're going to be like, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you go to extremes with it,
Right.
that
and then
might
you're going
be
to
how
have to
you
drink 6 cups of coffee to try.
And then
right.
That
and then
might
you're
be
going to
how
have
you
to drink 6 cups of coffee to try.
and then
wake up.
you're not going
Yeah.
to send your project. Yeah.
And then it's all downhill.
Yeah, no, but for sure, I mean, like I brought more carbs out today when we were climbing than I would normally eat, and it made me feel better because we had the approach that was uphill with a pack on, and then
Right.
you're outside in the elements all day. So like definitely eat more carbs on your climbing days to keep your energy levels up.
Okay.
But in the form of, it doesn't have to be goose. It doesn't have to be
Right.
Coke.
It can be real food.
Yeah,
you know.
definitely make it real food.
You bring real food to the crag. That's been my go-to for the last 6 or 8 months, is just to make, like you talked about with burgers, just to make a bunch of extra breakfast, and then I'll roll it in a tortilla and take it to the crag with me.
Perfect.
And that seems to work really well for me, instead of let me take a bunch of bars and a bunch of goos or whatever.
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, if you were a runner, it'd be a different story, but
Sure,
we're climbers. We're like sitting around a
We
crag.
carry a big ass bag up with us. And,
Yeah, my bag of food was like 5 pounds, whatever. It's real food, like an avocado and stuff that weighs something. But I think that's fine. Now, there are a lot of climbers who go up to crags and they hardly bring anything. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of climbers just prefer to not eat anything all day, which I've never understood. And I don't think that it lends itself well to performing well, because you're low blood sugar. Like, how could you possibly?
Yep.
But if you do that, then definitely feed yourself well afterward. Like, go ahead and eat a lot, because you're going to need it, because you've starved yourself all day.
Right. So can we talk coffee for a minute? You said
Sure.
You said coffee with such hate the first time you said it that I know some coffee freaks out there probably turned this off immediately and were like, she doesn't like coffee.
Oh, I know. No, I know. People, I mean, I could honestly talk about coffee for like 3 hours straight, just because it's such a huge part of our culture, right? And I don't know if it's climbers in particular who are so in love with it, but you guys are so in love with it. It's like you're like proud when you
like your coffee methods. And,
yeah. But I mean, I don't want to insult anybody.
No.
But it is interesting to me to see this like sanctioned drug abuse.
Right. Yeah,
which is
that's
exactly
basically
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is. It's like a stimulant drug. It's very much it very much affects your nervous system and your mood and your energy levels and the amount of cortisol and adrenaline that are running around your body. And as climbers, first of all, I don't think we need any more of that shit running around our bodies, because it's super stressful on our bodies.
Yeah.
So I just think that we've been taught to just lean on it a lot. And the best substitute for caffeine is just good food. Like keeping your blood sugar stable so that when you crash, you don't feel like you need caffeine, because all caffeine does is it sends a signal to your body that something stressful is happening. So you need to secrete cortisol and adrenaline and all these stress hormones. And one of the things that does is it makes your liver push out blood sugar into your system. So it feels like you've eaten something.
Right.
And so it actually does. That's why it's an appetite suppressant too. So it does make your body feel like you've eaten. But it's really stressful on your body. Which is dangerous to do that.
You know, that happens to me sometimes because I'm not a big coffee fiend, but I used to not like it at all. But in the last 5 years, probably, I've started getting into it a little more, largely because for me, mornings have always been a struggle. I had a horrible sleep problem called awareness during sleep paralysis for years. And so mornings were always a struggle. And the act of getting up and making coffee and having that routine was really nice for me. So I've learned to like coffee. I still don't, I don't know how to make pour over coffee or any of that. I have no idea. I'm definitely not a coffee fiend, but there are mornings where I sit down at the computer to do some work while I'm drinking coffee, and then the next thing I know, it's 11:30 and I haven't eaten anything.
Yeah.
You know,
That's super
that
common.
definitely happens.
Or like a lot of people will get up, have some coffee. I almost said take it like it's a drug. Have some coffee.
Intravenously take their coffee.
Yeah, and then go work out. And that's one of the worst things I see my clients doing to themselves because they're depending on those stress hormones to get them through that workout. Most of the time, those workouts are not great for them either because they've fasted for 8 to whatever hours.
While they
Their body
slept.
wants food, and then they give it caffeine, which is a stimulant, and then they go work out, and they don't have the proper energy to do the workouts. Then what happens is they have a major slump at 3 p.m. because they haven't fed themselves properly and they've done this very stressful thing on their body. So I think that like one of the most important things people can do is eat something even little before working out in the morning and then continue to eat for the rest of the day. Definitely eat like within no more than like an hour before your workouts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
And then within an hour after your workouts, and that can be really helpful. But the whole caffeine thing, it just kind of freaks me out because I see a lot of people who are a little bit older, like even in their late 30s, sometimes even in their early 30s, who have depended on caffeine a ton.
Right.
And all of a sudden their adrenals get really taxed because a lot of those stress hormones are coming from your adrenals. And all of a sudden they like start to gain weight and they can't lose it. They have lower energy levels. They get really bad stomach digestion stuff because it's all related. They get headaches. They get like super low sex drives. All of their hormones just go out of whack. And it's because of all of these stress hormones that they've been depending on. Right.
Is there a safe, healthy way to use coffee?
I mean,
does that even exist?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a spectrum too, just like the protein thing. We're all totally different.
Right.
And physiologically, like I'm super sensitive to caffeine. And that's probably partly why I'm so strict about it with other people, or I'm so worried about it with other people.
Yeah.
Is because if I have caffeine, I get very, very anxious. And that's the other thing to understand is if you have caffeine, some people it makes you anxious. That's one of the physiological effects it has.
Yep.
So if you have anxiety issues, caffeine is definitely something to think about. But anyway, there are people who could drink 3 pots of coffee their whole lives and live until they're 105 and be totally, totally healthy.
Right.
But then there are other people who, like me, if I had coffee every day, I would be a wreck. And I just think that everybody owes it to themselves to know where they lie on that spectrum. And the only way to do that is to stop drinking it for like a month so that you can actually detox from it and then try it and see how it makes you feel.
Yeah. And I think that's good advice. When you were talking about it the other day, I thought, I wonder if I've become, if I'm leaning on this coffee and don't even know it now. So would it be a good idea for me to take it out for a month or so and just see how I feel?
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good idea. And
you can't really do it for less than that. Because if you get off coffee, and it takes like a while to actually detox. You could stop cold turkey, and it might take you 3 weeks for your body to be like, okay, this is our new normal.
Get rid of all that.
Some people can stop in cold turkey and they're totally fine. And those are the kinds of people where I'm like, yeah, okay, you might be fine with a little bit of coffee. But it's super addictive. There are definitely withdrawal symptoms. So you have to give yourself that full month and then make the decision.
Yeah. I think there's a tornado going on out there.
So too.
I hear things falling over, and this is crazy. We tried to record this at the Crag, but it got too windy, and now Charlie Manganello's house is going to blow over.
Yeah, sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, so, I think that it goes right back to what you said about how do you feel?
How do you feel? Yeah, exactly.
And be honest with yourself. And you said something in there that reminded me of a lot of my clients and people that I've talked to and worked with, where you said they drink coffee and then they feel horrible throughout the day. They dip really low, and then the response is, I need more coffee.
I need more coffee.
And it's this vicious vicious cycle. And I see that with training all the time, where people will train a bunch, they'll train themselves into a hole, be a little overtrained, they'll feel really weak. So their response is, I need to train more.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the opposite of what they should be doing.
That's a really good,
So,
yeah, that's really similar.
yeah. I mean, I like that your main advice is just, how do you feel? Like, how is your diet making you feel? I think that's a really important thing to look at, because we're all, not all of us, but a lot of us are very scared of it or focused on it, or we put a lot of emphasis on what we're eating and our diets. And I've seen so many people who are hardcore about their diets, but they're not happy people.
Yeah.
And they're not doing well, but they're still super hardcore about what they're eating, and this is the right way and you should do it too. So I think that's a good thing to ask yourself.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think some general rules would just be eat real food and try to imagine what we were eating as we evolved and try to eat as much of that as possible. Like if you're going to eat meat, try to make it from a really good source where those animals were eating what they're supposed to eat, like grass usually.
Right.
And if you're eating dairy, same thing. Like you don't want the crap that they put into conventional dairy. Like spend the money if you can and buy good ingredients and stuff that doesn't have a bunch of pesticides on it, because those are really important things too. And if you can eat whole real foods almost all of the time, if not all the time, then you're going to do yourself a real favor.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds cliche, but like that's just the truth. Yeah,
I think that's important to say, and I think that's important to hear coming from a nutritionist, as well as sleep better, sleep more if possible. And what were your other...
Sleep, make sure you drink a lot of water.
Yep.
Caffeine, stress is huge. Don't exercise too much. Half the time with my clients, I'm just trying to get them to exercise less.
Oh yeah, the battle for rest is real. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Like actual rest days are very important. And also with the caffeine thing, I just want to mention that kombucha has caffeine in it, and tea has caffeine in it, and all these things chocolate has caffeine in it.
Damn it.
And all of these things, there are people who drink 1 cup of coffee in the morning and they don't sleep well. So it's real for people. And if you're not sleeping well, consider the caffeine, because it is so important for your climbing.
Right. And again, be honest about how those things are connected. I could very easily say, I'm sleeping better now than I ever have in my life. And I'm drinking coffee, so there can't be a problem. But I could still sleep better. So maybe not drinking so much coffee is something I need to look into.
Right.
I need to try it and see what it's like.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just a matter of how much you want to optimize your health for whatever reasons. Because for some people, it's just not worth it. They're like, I'm going to drink my coffee, Neely, and I don't care what you say. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
fine.
I'm gonna eat ice cream. I don't give a shit because I fucking love ice cream. But
I mean, ice cream is honestly one of the better sweet treats, just because.
Oh, you're my favorite.
Because it has fat and or protein in it, and so that's gonna really blunt the blood sugar effect that it has on you. I don't really have a problem with ice cream, depending on what kind of ice cream, or like depending on the quality of it.
All right, you're my favorite. That was exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So, if you just pay attention to how you're feeling, you sleep, drink more water, again, with the caffeine and all that, pay attention to how you're feeling, then you'll end up jacked like Neely, and you'll be able to climb like Daniel Woods. That's how it works, right?
Obviously, yeah.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. I think having good common sense approach to the way you're eating is super important for a lot of people, me especially, because I can't, like I said before, I blank out.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sitting down,
black out,
and giving me the common sense rundown on it.
Yeah, I'm glad you appreciated it, and thanks for talking to me today.
Yeah, no problem. Let's do it again.
All right.
Big thanks to Neely. I appreciate that she helped make room in a busy schedule that was going on here at the ClimbStrong seminar to sit down and talk with me. And thanks for all you do. I appreciate it. And I do want to say, for you guys who are listening and who are a lot like me, and nutrition talk and nutrition reading just makes you space out, it's a really simple approach. Neely's a big fan of the 30-30-40 approach, which is 30% fat, 30% protein, 40% carbs in all of your meals and in your entire day, obviously. And she's an advocate for using MyFitnessPal for a few days just to see what it is that you're doing. MyFitnessPal is an easy way to input your food, check the calories that you're getting versus what they suggest and what those macros are. And I've started and stopped it multiple times because I just don't have the patience. And again, I black out when it comes to nutrition. But I've started it up again just to see what I'm doing and what I could do better after this talk with Neely. And I've had a much harder time than I expected, honestly, getting enough protein. If you'd have asked me before, I would have said and have said that I get plenty of protein, but that may not be the case. So I'm definitely making an effort to up my protein intake here based on Neely's suggestions. And I'd suggest that you guys do the same. Check out MyFitnessPal and track your food intake for a few days just to see where you could be better, and then make some new habits, and then stop counting the calories. I don't think it's a super healthy thing to do for a long term. That's my opinion anyway. And you can find more about Neely at TrainingBeta.com. Obviously, go check out her podcast. If you have nutrition questions, hit her up. I'm going to try and talk with Neely again this summer because I'll be hosting a roundtable with Neely, Steve Bechtel, Charlie Manganello, and Arno Ilgner at the International Climbers Festival, which happens July 12th through 16th here in lovely Lander, Wyoming. Great place to be in the summer. You can find more about that at climbersfestival.org. And if you're in town, Nate and I will be here, and we're available for private outdoor sessions if you want to talk about tactics, if you want just to look at your climbing, and we can give you advice on where to improve and how to do that. We're open, so hit us up. You can also find us this summer in Milwaukee at Adventure Rock from August 17th to 19th at the Midwest Training for Climbing Conference, and find more info on that at midwesttcc.com. And patron-only episodes coming soon. If you've been thinking about it, now's the time. Patreon.com/Power Company Podcast. For as little as $1 a month, we've got more content coming your way. And, like always, share us on your social medias, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Pinterests. No Twitters. We don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
It's time to build.